Bleach episode 24 titled Too Early to Win, Too Late to Know is finally here, as the pace really picks up as we begin the next portion of the 1000 Year Blood War arc, as we switch from the conflict within the Serete to focusing on the battles going on in the Royal Palace. Most of the material within this episode adapts content from chapters 597 to 601, with several notable additions and rearrangements made to the order of events. This episode is special and there is no other way to describe it. I wouldn't hesitate to say that it's so far my favourite episode of Core 2. This week's episode has several anime exclusive scenes, moments that have been rearranged as well as outright changed from what occurs within the manga, in order to give us a superior new version of events which really improves upon the manga. We begin with an amazing 4-minute anime exclusive scene which reveals a never before seen conversation between Yhwach and Ichibei, which takes place 1000 years ago before Yhwach had originally invaded the Soul Society. This was a jaw-dropping way to begin, and it totally reminds me of episode 7 from Core 1, which had started with that insane flashback of the original Gote 13. Now the first half of this episode covers material from chapter 597 to 599, with there being very notable changes, including an anime exclusive scene of Ichigo and the others discussing the purpose of Yhwach while they are traveling to the Royal Palace. The second half of the episode adapts material from chapter 600 to 601, with the final scene being adapted from chapter 604. As you can tell, there is a lot of reworking of the manga content going on. Over the last 23 episodes of Bleach, we have had several anime exclusive scenes. The anime staff have really done their very best to reveal to us moments that have occurred off screen as well as extending fight scenes. But this week's episode has set a precedent because for the very first time we are actually getting a change to the manga material unlike any of the episodes before it. The order of events and how they unfold has been changed in comparison to the manga, as well as all new scenes being sprinkled in between. Now these new scenes flesh out the manga content featuring the Zero Division, which had left fans feeling disappointed when these chapters had first released. The end result is a totally new version of events which both anime only and manga readers will be able to thoroughly enjoy, and hopefully it will live up to all of our expectations. There is an insane amount of stuff to cover in this video, so rest assured that I'll be covering every single cut, change and addition that has been made, and I'm going to be refraining from talking about any scenes that are one-to-one adapted from the manga, as I'll solely be focusing on the changes that the anime makes. So without further delay, here is my manga versus anime comparison for episode 24 of Bleach's 1000 Year Blood War arc anime. The episode begins with an amazing surprise via a 4-minute anime exclusive scene taking us approximately 1000 years into the past, presumably before Yhwach's first assault on the Soul Society, where he was defeated by the original Gote 13. He is sat across a long table within Silburn with Ichibei at the other end. Ichibei speaks with Yhwach about the purpose of the Shinigami and how they balance the three realms of the Soul Society, Wakamundo and the world of the living. The purpose of the conversation is about a pact of trust between the Soul Society and Yhwach's Empire of Light. As the two are discussing the terms of this agreement, Ichibei tells Yhwach to leave the control of the three realms to the Shinigami so that Yhwach can continue to enjoy ruling over his empire. He moves on to discuss the unification of the Quincy, which are the Quincy who follow Yhwach within his Empire of Light and the traditional Quincy like Soka and Ishida who don't divert from the old ways of the Quincy. Ichibei reveals that he is unaware of any attempt of the Empire of Light attempting to unify these two groups, so it may not be wise to make an oath under these circumstances. Yhwach says that this is questionable, asking if Ichibei thinks of him as some ignorant child who doesn't know. Ichibei says that he didn't mean to belittle him, but it is true that Yhwach doesn't know much. Yuha then speaks about how long ago reality had consisted of only one world. There was no such thing as death or an afterlife. He then asks who was it that had disrupted the eternal peace of the world by separating both life and death. Ichibei says that it was the Soul King, as Yhwach then asks who had brought the fear of death upon people. Ichibei once again states that it was the Soul King. Yhwach then explains that he can hear the anguish of the souls that return to him, the desperate cries of the people who are afraid of death and they cling on to their lives. He wonders if he will now still respond to him with these same words as he addresses him by his full name. Ichibei tells him not to say his name so casually, as Yhwach begins to gather reishi as he asks where is their peace within the three realms. He then opens his eyes, revealing there to be two irises, which indicates that he is has activated a weaker form of the Almighty because it has 2 irises instead of the 3 that we see later on in the story. Both of them resolutely yell at each other, "Let me show you," as Ichibei raises his hand towards Yhwach while he defends himself from an attack from a random Quincy girl who is also present at the meeting, along with Zedritz, Hubert, and Algor. Within Ichibei's hand, an eye appears with 2 irises inside it. He uses this to show Yhwach the true history of the world. Similar to how Ichigo was shown it within Irazu Sando, we see a sequence of images that flash before the screen. Now some of these we have seen before, but there is one new still image of Ichibei holding the dismembered body of the Soul King, revealing that he was present when the Soul King as we know him today was first formed. Yhwach witnesses all of this in shock as Ichibei tells him that he didn't know about this, explaining that together with the Soul King they are preserving this dangerous reality. After being shown these images, Yhwach appears to be riled up, disappointingly saying how sad as he calls him pathetic. Appearing in front of him, he grabs his arms as he reveals that he could already see it, as he then asks if he really thinks that he can kill him with these hands. Ichibei comments on the change of Yhwach's eyes, stating that they are troublesome. He reveals that Yhwach cannot see farther than the Soul King. Then an oversized hand appears which resembles Pernida as it towers over Yhwach, with the eye staring down at him as it grabs him and then disappears. This may have been Ichibei deactivating Yhwach's the Almighty, as Yhwach reacts surprised, wondering what has he done. Ichibei then gets up to leave, and while walking away he tells him that until he dies his eyes will never open again, advising him to live humbly from now on. After Ichibei leaves, Yhwach speaks about the state of his eyes, commenting on how it is better for him to live without knowing about what will happen in the future. He refers to the Soul King as his father, stating that he has lost his limbs and has become a hideous lump of flesh that the world worships now. He refuses to allow things to remain as they are, stating that he will give the Soul King a better role, revealing that the Soul King must disappear in order to restore reality to how it once was. But he will ensure that the Soul King becomes a grave marker for the 3 realms, which will be destroyed as a result of his new ambition. I had to break this down line by line because it is just insane that this has been shown to us. This is content straight out of Can't For Your Own World, and we learn so much about the nature of reality, how Yhwach was like 1000 years ago, and most importantly, just how sinister Ichibei has always been. This scene was really needed within the manga, and I'm really glad that it was included here, as it also serves to reveal to us that Ichibei had nerfed Yhwach by sealing his Shrift ability, which was a massive handicap for him going into his battle against the original Gotei 13. Following the flashback where we see a discussion between Yhwach and Ichibei, we cut to the present day where Yhwach, Hashward, and Uryu appear within the royal palace as we begin to adapt material from the start of chapter 588. The first 6 pages are adapted into the pre-intro segment with a couple of new lines of dialogue. After telling Hashward to begin, in the anime he also states that they will end this world full of fear, and with their own hands they will create a new world which has eternal peace. After this, Hashward summons the Sword Art, and in the anime Senjumaru appears to confront them, but in the manga we have Korinji appear instead. Senjumaru appearing is taken straight from the end of chapter 597, as we then cut to the intro song. Now this is the first indication that the sequence of events are not only being rearranged, but this episode has changed how scenes unfold within the manga. Of course, this is exactly what myself and other fans were wanting from the 1000 Year Blood War arc anime, ever since it was first announced. And to now see the anime staff giving us all new material which extends the rushed pacing of the manga is literally a dream come true. After the opening song, the episode begins with material from the end of chapter 598 where we see Ganju rush to join Ichigo and the others just as Urahara is about to fire them into the sky. Now the manga does have a couple of pages worth of material from the end of chapter 597 that occurs before this, which has been cut from the anime. This comedic scene involves the cannon appearing from the ground as Urahara plays loud music that irritates Ichigo as he begins to count down to them finally launching. The comedic banter between Ganju and Ichigo is trimmed down within the anime because in the manga Ichigo actually jokes around with him, saying doesn't he have anything better to do. The anime skips over their small squabble as Ganju begins explaining about how they helped the Zero Division to return to the royal palace. This exchange is extended in the manga as Ganju explains about how he has to come with them because he has the roadmap to the royal palace and that you cannot get to the royal palace without it. We see Ichigo checking if this is true with Urahara as he tells him that he has already accounted for this. Now this is altered in the anime as Ganju briefly mentions the map before Ichigo cuts to the chase asking if Ganju is sure about joining them. After Ichigo and the others are fired into the sky, the anime shows us an exclusive scene where we see several reactions from people in the Serete like Byakuya, Renji, Rukia, Rukia, Bazby, and even a defeated Robert. We get a few new lines of dialogue from Mairi here also, who is seen to be observing the successful launch as he criticizes the unsightly upward trajectory of the rocket, complaining about the launch appearing to lack coordination. Following this, we cut back to the Royal Palace with material from chapter 597 as Senjumaru states that it's been a long time since she had last seen Yhwach. When Hashwad orders the Soldat to attack, Senjumaru has the royal soldiers charge and defeat the Soldat, and it seems as though Senjumaru has taken the place of Korinji here, because in a similar manner Korinji had taken out several Soldat within the manga. So things are being swapped around here, and following this clash we sync back up with chapter 597 where Yhwach begins walking towards Senjumaru. Now the only difference here is that in the manga Yhwach actually walks past Senjumaru, and it's a really dramatic moment, but unfortunately we don't get this in the anime, which is probably one downside of rearranging these scenes here. So in the manga he actually walks past her and then the royal soldiers surround him, but in the anime he takes a few steps forward before the royal soldiers charge in. So following this, the anime cuts to content from chapter 598 where Nyanzol introduces himself properly and he explains his shrift ability. The rest of chapter 598 is adapted into the episode until the end where Nyanzol is defeated by Senjumaru. We then cut back to Ichigo and the others and we get an anime exclusive scene here which builds upon 3 pages of content from chapter 598 that have been rearranged and slotted here. The anime exclusive stuff features Ganju mid-conversation stating that the situation is a mess and that for some reason he had thought that the Shinigami would win. He comments on why the enemy had built a castle within the Serete and then decided to discard it and head for the royal palace instead, as he wonders what Yhwach is planning on doing. Chad then asks about what is in the royal palace, but Ganju reveals that he doesn't know because he hasn't been there. Orihime adds that Ganju said that he knows the royal palace better than anyone else, as he then explains that his sister had told him a lot of things, but they were minor details that aren't of much use to their current situation. Yoriichi adds to the conversation, stating that they are after the Soul King. She explains that the Soul King is the ruler of the world of the living, Hueco Mundo, and the Soul Society. She has only ever heard about him and has never met him. Chad adds to the conversation with maybe his most important contribution in the entire story, that maybe Yhwach is trying to replace the Soul King, to which Ganju explains that this has to be it. Ichigo then wonders if it is even possible to take the place of the Soul King. He states that he had seen a lot of things while he was training at the royal palace, and that the Soul King is the originator of the worlds. He then goes on to say that he doesn't think that he can be replaced. Regardless of whatever Yhwach's motive is, Ganju states that now they have come this far, they have to just defeat the enemy. This then cuts to manga content from chapter 598 where Orihime reminisces on how the situation reminds her of when they went to rescue Rukia, and this then wraps up the rearranged material from chapter 598. While they reminisce about Uryu, we do get an anime original shot of Uryu staring off into the distance, but he appears to be doing something that is causing his Quincy medallion to light up. We even see the patterns of Blutveen appear across his eyeball. This brief shot foreshadows something that happens right at the end of the episode. We then cut back to the royal palace with material from chapter 599 as we continue with Senjumaru's confrontation with Yhwach. The manga here has Yhwach summon more Soldat to battle his soldiers, as well as summoning the Schutzstaffel. The anime on the other hand only shows him summoning the latter. During his introduction, the anime gives Lil Barrow a new line of dialogue, as he says the answer has already been given. The rest of chapter 599 is adapted into the episode very faithfully, with the anime really building upon the source material, with Lil shooting Senjumaru as we then cut to the mid-card of the episode. The anime then cuts some panels from the manga from chapter 600 where Gerard scolds Lil for making a mess on Yhwach's path, as Lil then asks Pernida for help. The anime cuts this exchange as we just see Pernida begin to contort Senjumaru's body into a ball. Now after Kiryu explains how a cage works, Korinji makes his appearance, as he along with Senjumaru and Kiryu formally introduce themselves in this anime only sequence. Then the best is saved for last as Nimaya appears with the spotlight on him as he introduces himself as the #1 Zanbakudo creator. This is very different in comparison to the manga because Korinji is already there, so he doesn't really introduce himself again with the other members, and we just get a brief scene where we cut to Nimaya appearing onto the battlefield and introducing himself. Now I do like how the anime is handling things, as I think that they are giving the Zero Division a lot more respect than what they had received within the manga. After Nimaya introduces himself, we end with material from chapter 600. Nimaya's battle with Gerard begins as we adapt material from the start of chapter 601. The anime faithfully adapts chapter 601 until the point where Nimaya thanks Yhwach for invading the royal palace because it had given him a chance to use his Zanpakuto Sayabushi, a sword so sharp that it cannot be sheathed. We then cut to an anime exclusive scene here where Yhwach throws a medallion that he pulls from inside of his cape across the air and through Kiryo's cage as he teleports out of the trap. The medallion then drops to the ground. We then see a mysterious shot of Uryu, which combined with the last brief shot of him with his medallion glowing honestly highlights to me that he has just used his Shrift ability, the Antithesis, in order to allow Yhwach to escape. This then allows the anime to skip from chapter 601 all the way to the end of chapter 604, where Yhwach finally confronts Ichibei. Now the anime does include an exclusive scene here which sets the stage for the last 2 episodes of Core 2. Ichibei tells Yhwach that it is quite the feat to have the strength to get past Kiryo's cage. Nimaya doesn't seem to be too bothered, stating that this is to be expected from the king, complimenting how he is brilliantly rising. This is literally something that only Nimaya would say. We then cut to the inside of the cage as Hashward asks if they are not going after his majesty. Kirinji responds by saying that they are the ones who need to be going after Yhwach because even its hot spring water isn't strong enough to get rid of the smell of Ichibei. This is a pretty funny backhanded compliment which is typical of Kirinji's style. Returning to Ichibei, he tells Kirinji not to say whatever he wants just because he is far away. Yhwach, not bothered about his banter, asks if he is going to allow him to pass after addressing him by his full name. We then cut back to material from the end of chapter 604 as the episode ends with Ichibei telling Yhwach not to blame him if he loses his voice over casually saying his name. I'm confident that next week when we have episode 25 and 26 drop at the same time, we will see an expansion upon the material within chapters 602 to 604, giving the Zero Division a proper battle against Uryu and Hashward now that the Schutzstaffel have been defeated. The alterations that have been made to the anime within the last few minutes of this week's episode have massive implications for the anime, because this means that Yhwach doesn't do Ashwaulen to revive the Schutzstaffel and he leaves the Schutzstaffel defeated, as now Uryu and Hashward have to deal with the Zero Division. The manga had some backlash for off-screening the Zero Division fights, but this means that the anime is going to be fully showing them and they will be taking place during Ichibei vs Yhwach. Now the biggest change between the anime and the manga is that Nimaya was actually defeated before Yhwach had went on to confront Ichibei, so this definitely gives us something new to look forward to. Now there isn't any post-credit scene within this episode as we cut straight to the poem for episode 25, which wraps up this week's installment of Bleach. I think that this episode has given us a solid indication of what we can expect from Core 3 and 4. It's safe to say that we have all predicted that Core 2 will be ending near chapter 611. This means that we have around 76 chapters worth of content that needs to be adapted across the 2 remaining cores, which is more than 38 chapters per core. The current pacing of Core 1 and 2, they have been adapting 70 chapters worth of material over 13 episodes, leaving little room for anime only scenes, but despite this, we have still had a fair few new additions being made to the anime. I want you to think about just how much they will be adding to Core 3 and 4. It is going to be totally insane, and these last 26 episodes of Bleach will be very different to what we have received thus far. We can estimate that half of the material in Core 3 and 4 is going to be stuff that we have never seen before, which will expand upon the manga. It is going to be really wild to witness it. I've said all of this because episode 24 is a sign of what's to come. The episode changed around events, added new scenes, and made for an entirely new experience. This is something that anime only fans and manga readers can go into blindly and enjoy equally as much. Well, that was episode 24, Too Early to Win, Too Late to Know. It was obvious during my breakdown that I really enjoyed this episode, because ever since the 1000 Year Blood War arc anime was first announced, I'd been waiting for major additions and changes to be made in order to flesh out the weaker aspects of the story. The remaining manga material that we have left to adapt had suffered from rushed pacing and a lot of off-screen moments. However, we have a solid foundation that has been established within this episode that proves that the finale of Core 2 will expand upon the Zero Division battles, as well as provide us with more context behind Ichibei's battle against Yhwach. This week we had the amazing flashback scene at the start of the episode. We had the rearrangement of events so that each of the Zero Division members have their time to shine within the anime, and we have all new dialogue scattered across the episode, including Ichigo and the others talking about the Soul King and Yhwach's motive. The major addition mission that this episode makes is to establish Yhwach's fear of death and his resentment towards the Soul Society, who created a world that separated life and death. This is a major theme of Yhwach's character, which felt vague within the manga, but the anime is doing a fantastic job of hammering this home to us, as we begin to understand and appreciate the motives of the Quincy King. Next week, as you know, we will be having a double feature with episode 25 titled The Master and episode 26 titled Black airing at the same time as the finale for Core 2. I am beyond excited for what we can expect from these last two episodes because I'm confident that there will be massive surprises for manga readers and anime only fans. So what were your thoughts on this week's episode? Did you enjoy the flashback with Ichibe and Yhwach? What were your thoughts on the new lines of dialogue that are being added to expand the manga content? Are you excited for how the Zero Division members are going to be fighting Hashwad and Uryu next week? And lastly, what do you expect from the finale of Core 2? I hope that you enjoyed my in-depth manga versus anime comparison, and I'm looking forward to reading all of your comments on this absolutely insane episode. There was so much to talk about this week, and I really did try my best to get this video out to all of you as soon as possible. So if you've been enjoying the content, then please do subscribe to the channel for more anime and manga content like this. And lastly, thanks for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you next week for the highly anticipated finale of Core 2 of Bleach's 1000 Year Blood War arc anime. If you enjoy my content, then you can support my channel through Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or even through YouTube by becoming a channel member. You will gain access to exclusive channel perks and a Discord server which I frequently use. So become a member of my Zero Division and be the first to know about my upcoming videos. And once again, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.